A deathly silence filled the Verlassen fiefdom as Khan, their sovereign, outright carried out a death sentence right in front of their eyes. He did not bother waiting up for a ceremony or made some roundabout talks about a public hanging event, but mercilessly put a sword inside the Bearkin's chest. His indifferent gaze while doing so shook the resolve of the many who participated in the voting as they saw the aftermath of the semi-saint lying bloodied on the chair as Khan pulled out Lucifer. Just in a matter of a couple of hours, one of the strongest people of the fiefdom, who they thought was one of their guardians previously, turned out to be a monster who caused millions of people to lose their lives because of his greed for wealth. And after their new ruler gave them the role of the judge and the jury, their votes took the life of this culprit. Steel your resolve. There is no weak or innocent justice in this world. I will carry the burden of taking a life, while all of you decide whether the criminals decide this punishment or not. Spoke Khan in a serious and domineering voice. His firm tone brought everyone back to reality, and they came to realize the gravity of the situation. After all, with great power comes great responsibility. After a few minutes of pause, Khan declared that at this very moment, all the involved parties who played a part in the crime have been captured. Let it be capturing the Bearkin a few days ago, or everyone related to his crimes was arrested. They kept it a secret so no one was to be alerted, and eventually everyone was caught and brought into custody. The People's Court shall bring in all the related people tomorrow, as well as the other criminals currently under investigation related to various crimes, and in different departments of the government were to be brought in following weeks after a thorough investigation was done first. With this, I end the first hearing of the People's Court, announced Khan, and his gaze turned serious as he continued. I know many of you are overwhelmed. Some of you may think that my act was barbaric and not something that should be shown to the public. But do know that unlike you, these criminals like Commander Aswala wouldn't even blink before making such a choice. I want all of you to remember this, spoke Khan in a stern tone, and his voice echoed throughout the fiefdom. A criminal's life is not worth more than the lives of their victims, he said, and ended the broadcast. Khan knew that today's event was going to greatly affect the minds of the people, and soon, many would start to have second thoughts about the whole idea of participating in the People's Court voting process itself. And that's why he spoke those words, to strengthen their resolve and let the whole thing sink in their minds. After all, you decide your choice by your free will. As for the body of this semi-saint itself, Khan took it personally to his castle. Apart from Ronin, everyone else was busy with their respective tasks given by Khan, so there was no one else apart from the normal Covenant soldiers in the castle. Just then, Ronin came in and reported about today's matter. We did everything as you ordered, my master, spoke Ronin, and showed him a recording artifact that ran the entire session of today's session of the People's Court. How many do you have ready? Asked Khan. More than 150 million copies have been made. I guess running a fiefdom and having access to everything does come in handy, spoke Ronin. Don't be complacent. Commander Aswala was right. At the end of the day, it's them who truly run this place, while I'm the ruler in name only. I need to take control of everything before the people from the capital react and interfere here, spoke Khan with a serious tone. He quickly had to do takeovers on various ruling infrastructures as soon as he could and control them. Otherwise, his rule would be compromised and he won't truly hold the power in the fiefdom. Commander Aswala was just the beginning. Khan had already made a long list of people he had to take down and replace them with his own loyal servants and henchmen. And just like this semi-saint, his assassins were gathering enough proof against those individuals as well. Now, send those recordings to several parts of the Empire using our warships. People from every important region of the Empire as well as the capital should see this. Spread those artifacts amongst the public of the Empire using the underworld organizations. The more exposure this matter gets, the more support I will get from the normal citizens of the Empire, and those three factions won't be able to question my authority because I'm using the law to legally punish these criminals, spoke Khan. But my lord, doing this will also have consequences, responded Ronin. Khan nodded and spoke in a grim tone. It's a necessary move that must be made regardless of the risks of provoking the top powers. As for the consequences, We're spreading these recordings to minimize them to the lowest. They can't touch me or criticize me because I'm doing it lawfully," he said and looked at the body of the dead semi-saint. "Have you received a response from Elijah va Niklaus yet?" asked Khan and walked closer towards this battle-axe warrior. "Yes, my lord. By next week they will also be done. After today, both the brothers would think that the task you gave them is related to the people's court," spoke Ronan as a grin appeared on his countenance. "Well, it's partially true," spoke Khan and let out a light smirk. "Now, let's round up these guys within a week and start the next phase of our plans." "And what is that, my lord?" asked Ronan. Khan gave a sinister smile and replied in an excited voice. "We are going to rob our enemies in the broad daylight." Khan revealed his intentions to the rogue subordinate and placed his hands on the corpse of the semi-saint Bearkin, who was killed by Khan this very day. "Such a shame to let go of a great specimen. I could have kept him to fuse with Jugram," spoke Khan with a helpless expression. "Can't we use his body, my lord?" asked Ronan, who stood behind him. "Sadly, no. He belongs to a powerful clan from the capital, and they would want to bury him with tradition and stuff even if they discard him away in the eyes of the normal public. After all, there are only 200 semi-saints in the whole empire. Even their bodies are precious for many people." He explained why he couldn't keep the Bearkin to create a new ally or mix with any subordinate either. Unlike Solomon, Khan had killed this commander in front of 200 million people. So naturally, he would have to keep the body intact. "But that doesn't mean I can't salvage what I can afford to," spoke Khan with a light grin. "Absorb." Soon, the ability Absorption Divine ability started its work. It was the second time he was using it on a semi-saint. As the procedure finally ended after just 20 minutes, the system started notifying Khan in his head. The host has acquired the following physical skills and abilities. Berserker Charge, S rank, active. Allows the user to generate 3 times extra momentum and attack strength when charging in a single direction for 200 meters without being interrupted to deliver critical strikes. Reaper Storm, SS rank, active, upgradable. Using this skill will allow the host to create an aura storm to pull all the enemies in 300-meter radius towards himself, which is incredibly useful to get any physical and melee class enemies in your attack range. This ability serves as a top-tier crowd control skill for the Berserker class. Death's Embrace, SS rank, active, upgradable. Amplifies both damage and armor penetration against enemies by 50% for 10 minutes. Following are the magical skills VA abilities. Berserker Wrath, S rank, passive. Grants the host a 30% speed increase coupled with 15% higher damage against enemies in 100 meters radius. Gravity Well, S rank, active. This skill is especially useful in close-range combat. It allows the host to trap enemies and make them immobile for 10 seconds in a 30-meter radius. Spoke the system in its usual lifeless and robotic voice. Good, as expected of a seasoned warrior and a semi-saint. Spoke Khan. Some of these skills were exactly what the Bearkin used during their battle when Khan went to arrest him. Just that Khan was simply too strong because the Hero of Darkness title was in effect, so they didn't make any difference back then. But before Khan could rejoice, the system's voice resounded in his mind once again. Following are the merged skills and abilities using the Synthesis Divine ability. Marauder King, SSS rank, active, upgradable. Allows the host to ignore 80% of the enemy's defense and any magical barrier created using spells, formation, or an artifact while using a greatsword, giant's word, or a battle-axe weapon. Wrath of Vajra, SSS rank, passive, upgradable. The host will constantly receive a 10% buff in attack strength and skills damage output with every 100 enemies killed. The total buff received can be stacked as the battle progresses, and collective damage output can rise up to 500% at maximum. Notified the system. Shocked, Khan was completely flabbergasted by hearing the results of the merged skills. Because just like the Sword King Va Sword Battlemaster skill, These two abilities were insanely OP. Both Marauder King Va Wrath of Vajra skills were extremely compatible in a large-scale battle. And most importantly, Khan could use the first one for 3 different weapons of choice, while the second was a passive skill which was active all the time. This made Khan even a bigger powerhouse than before, because the Sword King skill was applicable only for swords while the Sword Battlemaster worked only on the swords of the enemies in a battle. They were limited in terms of flexibility. But both the newly merged skills had a vast range of applications because even now, Khan could fight 3,000 people at once given his levels and skills. However, if we were to factor in these 2 new skills now, even fighting 10,000 people at once wasn't impossible. All he had to do was stay alive and kill more enemies as the battle progressed. Similar to how Jugram, the Berserker subordinate, became stronger as the battle went by because of his unique rank variant species called the Chaos Demon, Wrath of Vajra would allow Khan to do the same. Wrath of Vajra was undoubtedly his biggest buff skill, as far as real battle involving numerous enemies like an army was concerned. Marauder King's skill was simply a slaughtering skill, as he would be able to bypass their defenses regardless of their origins, such as barriers made from spells or artifacts. If he used his darkness elemental attacks paired with these 2 new skills, he'd be a literal nightmare for the enemy side. Khan was certain that both these new SSS rank skills were also comparable to legitimate Saint rank skills given how both Sword King Va Sword Battlemaster were considered the same while being of the same rank as these 2. After nearly a year of his previous battle with Arkham Va Solomon, Khan had finally received a huge boost in strength and 2 new OP skills. Both of these were needed for the future battles he was going to have as the new sovereign of this fiefdom. System: use the importation skill and impart all the new skills and abilities to Jugram and Blackwell, commended Khan. Because these new skills were usable by both the Guardian Knight Va Hell Berserker subordinate who could use both Battleaxe Va Giant Sword weapons. Khan at the moment was extremely ecstatic because the results were already good. But again, the system had a surprise for him. The system detects a big source of world energy in the core of the subject Aswala Balu. The host is advised to eat its core. Nanny! Shouted Khan in surprise, because unlike Solomon, this bearkin had amassed a lot of world energy in his core. System: how is that possible? Asked Khan in a puzzled tone. Because the individual named Solomon Elfenheim was below level 100 and the being in front of the host is above level 150. World energy can only be saturated in a core of a being after crossing level 150 first. Explained the system. Ah, I see. No wonder I was able to only sense world energy after eating that elf bastard's core. He was simply too weak compared to this guy. Spoke Khan as he got the gist of the whole scenario. He looked at the glimmering gray core with covetous eyes and his gaze shifted to the half-dried corpse of the bearkin. Khan then spoke in a greedy voice. I guess this was the biggest reward of them all. Khan and Ronin stood in the middle of the room and the former decided to carry through the actions suggested by the system. And without waiting on a ceremony, Khan used Drake Claw's skill and ripped out the Semi-Saint's core that shone gray. Ah, so that's how a Semi-Saint's core looks like. Mine should look the same, he said and used a cleansing spell to purify the core. After both his hands and the core became clean, Khan gulped it down in a single go. Crink, crink, clatter, clatter. Suddenly, something unexpected happened that surprised both the men present in the room. The surroundings started shaking as Khan's body created a strong suction force that started pulling the air and objects around him. And soon, Khan felt a rush of newfound energy in his body. Before this, he could only sense it, but now he could feel it inside of his flesh and bones. This is world energy? Exclaimed Khan in surprise as he noticed the changes in the mana of the surrounding. The intangible energy his body was absorbing was the world energy that created the saints in the first place. Him eating this core somehow opened a pathway for his body, and the world energy inside the core and the surrounding area around Khan was getting absorbed rapidly. In the following moments, Khan started feeling this world energy moving inside of his veins and muscles from one side to another. Let it be his arteries or his spine. The streams of world energy circulated through his body and almost gave him a pump of adrenaline. I feel like I've become a lot stronger than BEF, whilst his words were not even finished. Boom! A loud burst of gray aura and an intense shockwave made of world energy was released from Khan's body that pushed the furniture, as well as Ronan and the corpse of the bearkin were pushed backward. Congratulations to the host for breaking through to peak Grandmaster rank in battle-axe weapons. World energy from the Semi-Saint's core has been completely absorbed. Current world energy progress, 2.5%. Revealed the system. However, before Khan could even react, it spoke in his mind again. Congratulations! The host has broken a threshold to level up. Informed the system. Ding! 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 The leveling up sound resounded in his mind till the point Khan stopped counting and awaited the final reports. The host has risen to level 175. Announced the system. Finally! After 3 goddamn months! Reveled Khan in joy. After being stuck at level 150 for more than 3 months, one of which went to his magic and mana training while the other 2 went to the Emperor's Chosen competition and officially taking command of the Verlassen fiefdom after the results. Khan had finally leveled up. Soon, he felt another surge of mana as well as a black and red aura inside of the body, and now his physique became even firmer and harder. The muscles in his body became sturdier and the mental clarity he had became even crystal clear. Show me my new stats, commended Khan to the system. Following are the statistics of the host. Name, Khan host. Species, human. Job, all for one. Rank, Semi-Saint rank. Level, 175. Strength, 12,694. Agility, 11,071. Dexterity, 12,345. Defense, 11,724. Mana, 14,589. The system reported and revealed Khan's new stats. Compared to the first day he arrived in this world when the God of Darkness threw him inside the Abyss Forest and he had only 5 stat points. The Khan of now had indeed come a long way. This is good. Now I'm sure I can fight even Cassandra as equals without needing the help from Hero of Darkness title or any other power buff skill. Spoke Khan and let out a deep sigh. Although the Raven Sorceress was around level 165 as per his estimations, she was still a monster of a different caliber. And with this rise in stats and levels, Khan finally felt like he could at least fight her confidently with 10 levels difference. Wish I could kill some more Semi-Saints, he said with a look of yearning for more power. System, how many more cores of a Semi-Saint person do I need to cross level 200? Asked Khan, as it was one of the main prerequisite conditions to become a saint. Based on current levels and stats, the host will need 2 more of such cores as well as lots of SS rank mana cores and ores to reach level 200. Reported the system. That requirement of world energy to break through to new realm. Where am I going to find 2 more Semi-Saints to kill? It's not like I can go killing another one tomorrow after I just killed this guy today. Spoke Khan in an exasperated tone. Because Khan needed thousands of high-grade mana cores and ores to level up and the Semi-Saint cores to break the restrictions on the level by making his body accept more world energy and making his physique compatible to increase more levels. This was the main reason why he was stuck at level 150 from the past 3 months despite eating 70 to 80 SS rank cores on daily basis. Only today did the breaking through those shackles finally help him use all the stored mana in his body to level up. The host can also eat the cores of legendary rank monsters as an alternative to the cores of a Semi-Saint being. Suggested the system nonchalantly. Dumbfounded. Khan was dumbfounded on the spot. Are you an idiot? Do you want me to die that badly? Just that magma drake alone nearly killed me. And it wasn't even a legendary rank monster but only a high lord. Retorted Khan at the suggestion by the system. I'll have to become a saint first before even thinking about hunting a legendary monster, he said. But suddenly, a devious idea came to his mind and he let out a wide grin. Ronan, keep all the Covenant soldiers ready tomorrow morning, he ordered. For what purpose, my lord? Asked Ronan with a curious gaze. Khan simply replied with a happy smile on his face and spoke in a coy tone. Time to increase our firepower. On the following day after the first ever trial of the People's Court, Khan and his army of the Covenant soldiers that was allotted for the capital gathered in front of the main castle. Nearly 1 million soldiers gathering in the open grounds of the estate owned by their sovereign had reached to all the top brass living in the capital, and most of them felt a foreboding of war coming their way. Hundreds of flying ships arrived in Khan's residence that was separated from the common populace and spanned for 20 kilometers as it was the home of their sovereign. Today, the 6 warships were also brought in as if Khan was getting ready for the conquest of some sort. Under his instruction, 1 million armed soldiers that were divided into 200 different battalions of armed and fully equipped in every aspect occupied a flying ship of their own. Generally, a large flying ship could carry 10,000 people at once for long-term travel or even supplies in thousands of metric tons easily. So the reason why Khan was using them today was unknown to many who served him. "Mr. Rodick, which is the biggest clan of the capital?" asked Khan to his official aide. "Sir, it would be the Bolton clan. They are the biggest supplier of arms and monster resources and have their business empire spread across the whole fiefdom. To put it in simple words, they're the Leviathan of the business organizations that even you shouldn't be messing around with, because their hold over the economy of the fiefdom is very strong," replied and explained the middle-aged man. "Ronan, do we have something on them?" asked Khan. "Yes, my lord. The assassins you sent in the shadows of those ministers and semi-saints also made their way through the organization chairman. As of now, we have discovered that the weapon manufacturing company that Commander Aswala made the deal with is actually a front. This Bolton clan is the one who runs it from behind the scenes," informed the rogue subordinate. "I see. Who's their strongest fighter?" asked Khan. "They have 4 peak grandmasters backing and protecting them," replied Ronan. "Good. I guess the biggest guy in the business world does deserve a personal visit from me. As for the rest, keep our communication network active. Send our troops to the business organizations and clans already allotted to them. You're in charge of handling the information network, and if anyone puts up a resistance, inform me as quickly as you can," commanded Khan, although it seemed like Ronan was the only person Khan had put a lot of work on. In reality, he was the most proficient one of all the generals, whether it was information gathering, managing millions of people under a solidified organization, or establishing a chain of command. Unlike the rest, Ronan was someone who not only had extremely lethal skills as an assassin, he was someone who read and studied plenty of books and records related to army management, warfare, and controlling an information network. The rest were also busy at the moment with the tasks given to them by Khan, so the rogue subordinate was the only one he could leave these matters to. "As you command, my lord," spoke Ronan. Khan then boarded on a warship of his own and sent the rest to different areas. On this day, all the natives of the capital Asir saw hundreds of flying ships and even a few warships flying to different parts of the capital all at once for the first time in their lives. For many, they felt like some great danger was coming their way and their sovereign was forced to act quickly to fight against it. But throughout the day, a scenario was created that shook the entire upper class of the economical sector of the Verlassen fiefdom. Through the people related to the case of the commander, many other types of criminals who committed tax fraud, worked as land mafia, and even forced people to sell their assets by kidnapping or murders were also revealed, and the proof of their crimes was gathered by Khan's assassins from over a week. And first thing Khan did today before their departure was that he issued a search and seize warrant for more than 200 big business organizations that they had proof against under his authority. He also ordered various banks to freeze the assets and money kept in their accounts, so no one would be able to do the damage control. And given no other choice, the banks and Chamber of Commerce had no other option but to follow their ruler's commands lest he targets them instead. One by one, in hundreds of headquarters of these clans and renowned business organizations, Khan's army of 5,000 armed Covenant soldiers started a search and seize procedure throughout all these organizations in the name of investigation related to crime against the fiefdom and its people. Obviously, there was plenty of resistance, but wherever such a situation arrived, the Covenant soldiers handled it by force, and if anyone tried to attack them, they killed the offenders on the spot. By no means Khan was going to allow anyone to look down upon his rule and authority. The innocent would never take such extreme measures, so only the guilty parties would fight back. Hence, using these warrants. In just a single day, their forces basically seized all the resources, money, and equipment as well as deeds of the properties owned by these people. Just in a day, Khan's forces also seized 120 new flying ships owned by plenty of major business organizations, clans, and many government officials who they had proof against. The news of the whole search and seizure scenario spread throughout the capital like wildfire in just a few hours and put fear in the minds of the ruling class, instantly scaring them and forcing them to take measures against leaving traces of their black money. So in simple words, by using people's court as an excuse, Khan was robbing the rich and committing a daylight robbery. After the whole search and seizure session ended for the day, the whole capital heard the news and everyone came to know about Khan's targets, whom the battalions of Covenant soldiers visited today. More than 200 renowned business organizations and corporations that worked in various sectors, let it be market, provision supplies, rations, jewelry, or even transportation business, were visited by these armed soldiers. And at the time of evening, Khan himself made another broadcast in the capital addressing the issue. The reason he explained that these corporations did tax fraud, hoarded the resources in order to raise prices, used shell companies to hide their money and resources. One after another, Khan presented the records that were confiscated by the Covenant soldiers today, and while doing so, he also mixed the evidence proving their crimes that were actually gathered by his assassins in secret. Most of the public was shocked to see that even the poor restaurant owners in their neighborhood were just pawns of these big organizations to funnel the black money and resources. This shook the normal hard-working class of the society, as none of them knew about how the whole corruption had been well established right before their eyes, but they never suspected anything. But as a result, many also feared the aftereffects that would appear in near future on the economy. Yet, the fact that their sovereign was bringing out these unbelievable scams to them and creating a transparent rule for the commoners had won the hearts of many people again. The very next day, another meeting between the elites and the ruling class of the fiefdom was held. But this time, no one had a stuck-up or a haughty expression on their faces, because unlike before, Khan's new crusade had put half of them in jail, and soon all those elites were going to be prosecuted in people's court, just like Commander Aswala. Some of them had chosen to flee the Verlassen fiefdom, while those who had too much to lose stayed behind. Yet their resolve was shaken to the core, just like the former. What do we do now? He came up with all the proof of scams and below-the-table deals. Even the most secure places have been discovered by him, regardless of the tight security. It's as if he planted his spies in our forces years ago. And those recordings he's showing in the broadcast are very recent, as well as from well-guarded locations. Spoke one of the business organization's chairman. Because the way Khan was collecting the inside information, it appeared as if all of them had his spies hidden in their inner circle. Yet they never found anyone. But unbeknownst to them, Khan's assassins were already in the shadows of these top figureheads, and while they were conducting these meetings, those same assassins were mixing with the people who were left out the last time. And each time any of them tried to hide their money and evidence. In reality, they themselves were helping Khan's assassins to gather more evidence and video recordings as proof of their scams, and implicating even more people who were connected in their misdeeds. This way, the amount of people Khan kept getting evidence against keeps piling up every day. The same scenario carried on for an entire week, and now, Khan had basically confined most of the top figureheads such as presidents, clan leaders, and chairmen of these forces who heavily influenced the economy of the fiefdom, while he, on the other hand, kept confiscating all their money, resources, and properties in the name of investigation. But since none of them could even fight back and the sovereign himself had gathered legit proof against them, there was no form of resistance they could put either. Khan was the strongest person of the entire fiefdom, and they were all criminals at the end of the day. With the authority and public support in his hands, none could even retaliate against him, because the members of the High Court and several government sector heads themselves were afraid of him, as there was a chance of Khan bringing them into the people's court and publicly execute them like the semi-saint commander. In other words, Khan had simply grabbed them all by the throat, and none of them could even fight back unless they wanted to get publicly killed, while their crimes were cited to the millions of citizens. And just like that, one more week passed by. The total amount of resources such as warships, flying ships, and even armory such as weapons, magic artifacts, cannons, armors the Covenant soldiers kept confiscating reached the point Khan could equip an army of 50 million soldiers. The rations and armory were simply too much that even Khan was dumbfounded. The amount of black money and resources these people had amassed was many times higher than his initial expectations. Just in 1 week, the money was already above 2 quadrillions. And these were not even half of the people he had on the hit list. At the weekend, Khan held another meeting between him and the general, with the addition of Elijah and Niklaus, who also returned from completing the task that was given to them by their lord. Omega, Jugram, Oliver, Elijah von Niklaus, who had particular secret missions of their own, stood in front of Khan and handed out their reports to Khan. "Good job, everyone. We have everything we need now. So it's time to begin the next phase of our plans," spoke Khan in a content tone as he rested on his throne in the main hall. "What is it, if I may ask, my lord?" asked Elijah, the druid among the 2 Stark brothers. "Thanks to you two and your grandfather's hard efforts, we can finally move with a better strategy and cover more ground. Now, I don't have to go after them one by one. We can take them all out in a single swoop," he replied with an excited expression. "I don't understand. What is it we're talking about here?" asked Niklaus with a curious expression, since he sensed a shift in their agreed plans that Khan proposed when he visited their house that night. To his confused figure, Khan only replied in a nonchalant tone, as if they were going to do an easy task. "It's simple. We're going to topple the government. Using the evidence, recordings, physical evidence, and witnesses against the people belonging from the different sectors of the governments, military, noble clans, and business organizations." Khan had brought more than 2,000 people into custody. Every single one of them belonging to a top force or having the backing of some top faction from the capital. Day by day, dozens of criminals belonging to the high class of society were brought into the people's court and their deeds were exposed to the people. And through the voting process alone, plenty of people were given a death sentence. And the ones to carry it out were the Covenant soldiers who were fully geared and masked under helmets. Nobody knew of their real identities or their origins, but now these soldiers in gray armors had become the people's protectors. Khan, on the other hand, had limited his involvement. Unless there was someone with extremely high standing or their deeds had greatly impacted the fiefdom or the lives of the people, Khan hadn't carried out the sentencing himself like he did with Commander Aswala. And 2 more weeks passed. The entire atmosphere in the Verlassen fiefdom had completely changed. Because every day, a great crime against the citizens of the empire that had resulted in millions of lives lost was revealed that fueled the hatred among the common people. Khan was strategically managing these trials so that the public opinion would always keep swinging to his side. Although the whole empire had gotten the news about Khan's deed and how he was mercilessly killing these people, the commoner class that made up 95% of the entire population of Rocco's empire was cheering for him instead. Because Khan had been deliberately spending trillions of gold coins to spread the recordings of these trials and how the people, regardless of their age, gender, species, race, or color, who committed heinous crimes against the common population due to their greed and lust for power, were being made to pay for their sins in the people's court. The support from the citizens across the whole empire was positive despite the government trying to criticize Khan as a merciless tyrant. But one, they didn't understand that the people they were trying to sell the story to belonged to the side of the victims. So no way they'd believe in the lies told by the government who had been oppressing them till this point while trying to appear fair and just. And after 3 weeks, People's Court had become a drug to the common citizens, and the recordings of these trials were highly sought after by the masses. Seeing the opportunity, more people with a knack for business started copying and creating their own stocks of recording artifacts, eventually helping Khan to spread them amongst the 4 billion population of the empire. Khan stood in his castle and had all of the available subordinates present in a meeting hall on the 3rd floor. "It's going as you planned, Master. Every day, we're bringing in the corrupted officials, businessmen and officers from the military for the trial after gathering evidence against them. And the innocent people of the fiefdom are greatly supporting you to the point some are forming cults and worship you as their savior," spoke Omega. To his report, Khan spoke in a serious tone instead. "Remember, there are no truly innocent people in the world. The fever, the rage, the feeling of powerlessness that turns good men cruel, explained Khan. But when the powerless are put in the position of the same people who oppressed, controlled, and ruled them, they would eventually end up doing the same kind of crimes and acts that made them detest the powerful in the first place. Iterated Khan as he decided to speak the truth of the real world. When a weak person was given a strong weapon that could kill anyone they hated, and that too without any consequences, they'd show their true colors. In this case, I'm the weapon and they're the ones swinging it, he said as he looked out of the window and took a glance at the crowd of the Capitol. But little did the citizens or the criminals know that it was that very weapon controlling both of them at the same time. The criminals he brought into the people's court were all his enemies and targets that stood in his way of absolute dominance and sovereignty in this fiefdom. And using the name of the public and crimes done against them, Khan was clearing out his competition without anyone being able to question his authority. Instead, his popularity and support was increasing with each passing day. And now, many top-level government officials and people holding military positions were taken out one by one. But for some reason, Khan still hadn't acted against the remaining semi-saint commanders from the three factions and the one from the native side as if he had plans for them. For the remaining two commanders from the noble factions, every passing day became insufferable as the fear of being brought into the people's court ate their sanity, and they couldn't even sleep without having nightmares of a Khan's greatsword plunged in their chest. But they couldn't even flee from their positions because their factions ordered them to hold the fort till they came up with a strategy of their own to counter Khan's rising popularity. Despite all their efforts to make him the villain and spreading hundreds of different rumors against him, none of the three top noble factions had succeeded because Khan had evidence and recordings from the broadcast to justify his actions, showing how the guilty committed what crimes, while these enemies of his only had their lies and orchestrated narratives. Yet, Khan was doing everything by the law and authority that was given to him after winning the emperor's chosen competition, and everybody he exposed was indeed worthy of that punishment. So they couldn't even move against him using a justified reason. And the biggest factor that stopped them from making moves was that all these people belonged to the elites of the society, noble clans and factions, as well as the soldiers that originated from their own ranks. So pointing their weapons against the one man who was fighting for the commoners in his fiefdom and punishing those who caused thousands and millions of deaths of innocents would turn the whole empire against them. And since no saint could even enter the Verlassen fiefdom, they had no available options to remove him either, because sending in the army or their respective troops with the warships would be no different than a declaration of saying that the noble factions wanted to kill him for bringing out the truth to the masses. The flawed system they created was becoming their undoing, and they were forced to minimize damage instead. So for now, all the three noble factions had no choice but to keep their mouth shut and wait for a method that would help them regain control of this fiefdom without creating any more problems. And in just a matter of the next 3 weeks, Khan promoted and handed out the positions of the main figureheads in all the sectors of the government infrastructure to only those who chose to follow and thoroughly support him. He had no use of others even if they were more qualified or had a seniority. Khan only needed those who would serve him loyally. So in just 1 month after coming to Verlassen fiefdom, Khan had toppled the government and cemented his rule as a sovereign. And now, there were only 3 more sectors left to rule. And his next target was none other than the military. While Khan's crusade against the ruling powers of the Verlassen fiefdom kept carrying over for weeks and each day, his covenant soldiers and assassins bringing in more criminals spread across the whole fiefdom. The structure of the authority itself changed drastically, because with each passing day, he was able to plant more of his people who either chose to serve him as they thought of him as a man worth following and pledging loyalty to, or someone who truly wanted to better the lives of common folks. In every sector of the government infrastructure, he had temporarily put the people that were already present there, since he couldn't outright bring in people with no expertise to fill in these positions and call it quits. This wasn't a criminal organization. He had to control and experienced people that already knew the ins and outs of the government were necessary. So making more loyal people was a better choice than placing those he had brought from someplace else. And once his hold over the government itself was cemented lawfully, Khan moved to his next target, the military. On a sunny day, Khan summoned the 3 semi-saint commanders, who still hadn't picked his side even after his warning on the very first day he arrived, for a secret meeting. In a manor located outside of Asir, Khan and his general sat on one side of a grand and luxurious living room while on the other end were the 3 remaining semi-saints. Out of the 6 semi-saint commanders, Khan killed one with his own hands while 2 had already pledged their loyalty to him. So now, 2 from the top 3 noble factions and 1 from a native military clan were left. But their situation was extremely delicate in reality. A white lionkin shaman, a centaur knight and a female orc warrior stood straight on the opposite side. Yawn. So which of you is going to make a correct prediction and tell me why I have summoned you 3 for this meeting? Asked Khan in a carefree tone as he yawned. Because it has something to do with us and the People's Court, am I right? Stuttered the white lionkin as he asked with a terrified tone. Bingo! Saved me some time. So let's get right off to the main topic. Spoke, and then his gaze turned deathly as he instantly released his now upgraded aura mixed with Rudra's. And now that he had leveled up, his aura was even more intense and horrifying compared to the time when he met these 3 commanders for the first time, making them all kneel in front of him in mere seconds. The next moment, Khan pulled out records after records from his space ring and placed them in the middle of the room. And soon, a big pile of these big and broad books amassed in the living room. You should know what these are, right? Asked Khan. Stunned. All 3 of the semi-saints were stunned on the spot. How can this be? These are the records of military budgets and recruitment records of the past decade, spoke the female orc warrior. In reality, these were the exact records and ledgers containing the inner details of the military. And these were handed to him by none other Commander Stark when Khan secretly visited the military clan's headquarters. It was also the same night when the House Stark pledged their loyalty to him. I have all the evidence against you 3, and after seeing the gravity of your crimes, I feel very reluctant to keep you bastards alive. Spoke Khan in a deathly tone as his insurmountable aura forced their bodies to cave in. You bastards didn't even let the dead rest in peace, he said. You stole the armors and weapons from the bodies of the deceased soldiers every year after the monster tide, saying that they were not reparable and sold them to weapons manufacturing companies. He said and stood up. Tap, tap. Khan then kept increasing his aura and walked towards them menacingly. You bastards even embezzled the funds allotted as compensation to the families of the soldiers who died in the battle against monster waves. Basically, you destroyed their families that already lost their breadwinners and put them on the streets. Do you have any idea how many innocent lives you bastards have destroyed? Shouted Khan in a furious voice that sent shivers in their bodies. Your crimes are just too despicable. If people got a hint of it, do you think even your factions and government can protect you from public wrath? Asked Khan in a solemn tone. And on top of it, you even made a huge scam in soldier recruitments. You enlisted those who paid for good positions and ranks in the military and treated them like elite soldiers without even proper training or experience. These spoon-fed bastards don't even know how to hold a weapon properly, but you made them leaders of battalions with thousands of soldiers in them. You left the fate of millions of soldiers in the hands of these unqualified dirtbags and filled your own pockets with the money they paid you. How many millions of soldiers have lost their lives because of you? Did you even bother counting? His grim voice resounded in the room. And you, unlike these 2, you're actually a native of Verlassen. How can you do that to people from your motherland? The ones who died also belong to the cities where your entire clan lives. He berated the orc warrior. Forget about me. If this news leaks out to the public, just imagine what will happen. Hell, the whole army of the Empire will hunt you 3 down. And there will definitely be a grand execution where you will be burned alive. I, myself, am looking forward to that day, spoke Khan in a wrathful tone. All 3 of them were shivering in fear as their bodies had goosebumps all over. What Khan had was something that would indeed spell out their inevitable death if anyone found out the truth. As for Khan, he had luckily made a right ally, because these records were something that one wouldn't even notice if they didn't know where to look. And thanks to the old swordsman semi-saint aka Commander Stark, Khan got the exact documented evidence with the seals and signatures of these 3 commanders that were carefully hidden in the main headquarters of the military. The old man risked his life to get them and barely managed to smuggle them out, since this information was so crucial that the other semi-saints wouldn't even think twice before trying to kill him. "What do we need to do, my lord? Please spare our lives," pleaded the Centaur Knight semi-saint. But instead of replying, Khan took a round lotus-like artifact out from his space ring. And as soon all the 3 semi-saints saw the round object, their faces turned ashen white. Because the object in Khan's hand was the Blood Oath token. Under Khan's highly oppressive aura, the 3 semi-saints kneeling on the floor were too stunned to even speak as soon as Khan revealed the Blood Oath token. This was the most foolproof method of signing a contract in this empire, and a Blood Oath token was something only used by the elites of the society when there were grave matters related to 2 different parties which required both sides to deliver upon their promise. But if there was any form of resistance shown by either of the participants, the ritual would fail and the contract would never be established. The main reason people still used it was because if either of the parties involved don't live up to the contract or tried to betray or backstab the other one, they would die within 10 hours. These Blood Oath tokens were extremely rare, and their magic was so strong that even a saint would die if they broke the contract. The deal between the 3 factions regarding the Emperor's Chosen competition was also established by using an artifact like this by having their respective faction leaders partake in the ritual. "I already gave you guys a choice, but you chose to ignore it. So why should I care if you live or die?" asked Khan in a condescending tone. There was a reason why Khan waited all this time and hadn't exposed their scams to the public. He was waiting for the right opportunity and strike when he could reap the maximum benefits. "Choose whether you'll serve me or your respective factions or clans from now on." He spoke in a domineering tone. "My lord, can you give us some time to discuss?" asked the Lionkin in a scared voice. "Fine. You have 10 minutes, replied Khan and sat back at his sofa. The 3 commanders then left the manor, and using a domain artifact they started their discussions among themselves. But little did they know that Khan was using the hive mind skill to watch and hear through the assassins that were already hidden in their shadows. "The hell? That bastard knew this was going to happen. He knew we'd be cornered to the point where we don't have any choice but to accept it," cursed the orc semi-saint, her voice filled with fury and immeasurable hatred for Khan. "What choices do we even have now? If our doings are revealed, even our factions will discard us away, like they did with Commander Aswala," spoke the Lionkin, who was originally from the Pureblood faction and had seen how the demi-human completely renounced the Bearkin semi-saint as the culprit and the traitor to protect their own reputation. Commander Aswala was already disowned by the demi-human faction as soon as the recordings of his trial spread across the empire, saying that he tarnished their name and creed with his actions. Their clans and factions had no part to play in his crimes. And if Khan revealed their secrets, the fate of these 3 semi-saints would be no different. A heated argument happened between these commanders, and finally, once the 10 minutes were up, they returned to the manor and all of them kneeled in front of their sovereign, who was carefully enjoying a glass of wine. "We will follow your orders, my lord, as long as you keep our secret," spoke the Centaur Knight, the semi-saint of the neutral faction. They did it because currently, even their factions weren't trying to protect them and treated their lives as a calculated casualty in case Khan was about to aim his sword at them next. And even now, they hadn't sent any type of backup for them either for some reason. "Good. Know that there's a reason why I'm keeping you all alive. But there's a condition," spoke Khan and started setting up the conditions of their contract. And as expected of him, Khan had presented a contract to them, but also made the condition that they'd become his double agents in their respective forces. And when the time came, they wouldn't even think twice before betraying their clans and factions. This was basically a slave contract with extra steps. Complete the ritual if you want to stay alive. From now on, all of you are my servants. And under his ominous aura, all 3 commanders underwent the ritual by surrendering their minds to this tyrant of a sovereign. After the semi-saints left and Khan was left alone with his subordinates, he had an elated expression on his face. Khan was blackmailing these people because they were more useful to him than being dead. Blatantly killing them just to get their cores like he did with Commander Aswala would be an extremely stupid move on his side, because if he did so, the three noble factions would rain down hell on him one way or another regardless of the consequences. The one-time offense could be let go, but if he crossed the limit, he'd be in deep trouble. Although Khan was the strongest guy here, he may have to leave the borders of the fiefdom one day for some reason, and then he'd have the saints waiting to slaughter him. Besides, he still did not know what would happen in case he was to become a saint under the domain barrier that surrounded this fiefdom. Whether he'd be thrown out of it or die on the spot was still a mystery to him. The chances of the latter were most likely to happen, so there were limits on how much he could provoke the three factions given the current situation. So creating a cage for himself with his own hands was an outright foolish choice. But instead of killing them, Khan had better uses for these three semi-saints. Something that he couldn't reveal to extremely honest people like Commander Stark and Commander Mormont of the North. Khan did so because rather than toppling the military order and chain of command, he could still use these people to easily get hold of the other three regions under their rule and would not get any form of resistance from the local forces or the military forces either. And under his orders, after performing the Blood Oath token ritual, the semi-saints themselves would cut down the weed for him while he reigned from behind the shadows. So after taking full control of the government using People's Court, he used the fear it created and took control of the military itself. Because it was a must part of the fiefdom infrastructure, as the monster tide was bound to come this year again, and Khan needed a stabilized chain of command and people who would follow his orders. Omega, Oliver, and Jugram, since you've completed your tasks, said Khan as he finished the glass of wine and spoke in a sinister tone. Set up the meeting. It's time we become the true rulers of this fiefdom. 2 days later, on the southern end of the capital Asir, a secret meeting was held inside a 2-kilometer-long castle that was situated in a valley, and the number of people that came to attend this meeting were in thousands. Yet the atmosphere was extremely quiet, and all the guests were given a large table of their own, as every single one of them was a representative or a leader of their respective organization. The professions of these people didn't belong to the government, military, business world, and any clan or faction. Rather, all of them ruled the different side of the world, the underworld. On the very first day of his arrival, Khan had ordered Omega, Jugram, and Oliver with a particular task after his meeting with the two semi-saint commanders. And this was the exact purpose of that task he told them to accomplish. The current Khan was many times wiser and planned 5 steps ahead after learning through his mistakes in the past. So without leaving any aspect that would become a problem for his rule in the Verlassen fiefdom, he had already included the underworld in his plans. And as per Khan's orders, all of them had been posing as extremely wealthy customers by changing their appearance and making connections with these top criminal organizations of the underworld. And using Elijah von Niklaus, who pledged their fealty to him later, Khan received an additional set of helping hands. Since both the brothers were natives of Verlassen, they didn't have any problems while searching for their headquarters of thousands of criminal organizations, and later, the Covenant soldiers had raided and confiscated all their fortunes, networks, and belonging as the People's Court started. Within just 2 weeks, Khan's army of gray armored soldiers ran a crusade against all the criminal organizations and caught their leaders as well as the ones who aided them in any way. In the following weeks, all these leaders were brought to the People's Court and executed after the public votes declared them guilty. Currently, all criminal organizations became leaderless and out of order. And soon, the majority of them were having a war in between them to take over the position of the leaders. This was Khan's plan all along, to weaken them even before he made any moves himself. And with no proper leaders, they were as unorganized as a troop of new soldiers without a captain. Khan had simply dismantled the whole structure of the underworld that previously ran the fiefdom from shadows. And now, they were like headless chickens in his eyes. What remained now were the self-proclaimed leaders who barely managed to hold the position after the massacre between their own forces. The situation was dire, and hence, when Oliver, Jugram va Omega offered all these people to come for a secret meeting, and even after 100 million gold just for showing up, most of them happily accepted the invitation. But what shook them all was that they weren't the only ones who were invited. Even a group of 50 was acceptable, but more than 1,000 people, all of whom were the current heads of the underworld organizations in their respective cities and regions, were gathered under the same room. But unlike brain-dead morons, these people understood that whatever was about to happen would greatly impact their rule in the fiefdom, and hence, most of them quietly awaited the hosts to clarify the situation to them. At the end of the grand hall, where all the leaders were seated on their respective round tables with their people, 3 individuals stood like powerful and prestigious figures. A silver wolfkin, a blonde half-breed Tengu, and a 3-meter-tall redhead muscular man stood on a podium as the main hosts of this meeting. These 3 were none other than Omega in his Raiden form, Oliver as Icarus, and Jugram in his Dante appearance. Namely, the names of their alternate identities as the members of the 7 deadly sins. The chatter amongst all the guests continued for an hour, and finally, after all the listed people came to the meeting, Raiden walked in front and spoke in his domineering voice. "Thank you, everyone, for accepting our invitations and appearing for this meeting in good faith. As many of you can already guess, the reason why we have gathered all of you, the leaders of what remains of the underworld after the new sovereign, Con Salvatore's purge of the leaders of your respective organizations, isn't an insignificant matter," spoke Omega, and his tyrannical voice resounded in the entire hall. And the very next second, boom! 3 deathly and tyrannical auras filled the entire 1-kilometer-long gathering hall as the 3 subordinates finally revealed their true strength to everyone who came for this meeting. Peak Grandmasters. All 3 of them are Peak Grandmasters, shouted some of the leaders in disbelief. Peak Grandmasters were rare in Verlassen and only seen in the military so far. But now, not just 1 but 3 Peak Grandmasters suddenly revealing themselves shocked all of them. To be honest, the one to summon all of you isn't us, but the one we serve with complete loyalty, spoke Raiden. In the following moments, the entire hall was suddenly filled with black fog, and everyone was instantly surrounded by it. But before anyone could make a scene, an extremely powerful and oppressive aura froze all of their bodies in just a second. Swoosh! Swoosh! Soon, the black fog moved towards the podium and coalesced around a giant red throne. And when the fog finally faded, a middle-aged man with a beard as well as long black and strands of gray hair on the sides of his head finally came to be. Semi-Saint. The man who suddenly appeared on the throne was a legitimate semi-saint based on his aura alone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to introduce you to our master," spoke Raiden. And in a vehement voice, he finally introduced this semi-saint donned in a black long coat. Lord Zeus. In the main hall of the castle, all the leaders of the underworld organizations were rooted on the spot. Khan and his subordinates emitted their deathly aura at maximum capacity to oppress everyone present in this gathering, and not a single one of the thousands of people present here was left as an exception. All of them were the highest-ranked rulers of their respective fields and regions where their organization controlled the underworld and black market. But now, none of them even dared to move an inch. More likely they just couldn't. Every single one of them couldn't believe that the middle-aged man sitting on the red throne was actually a semi-saint, one of the strongest beings in the Verlassen fiefdom. All the semi-saints in this region were accounted for, but the man in black appeared out of nowhere and instantly revealed his might. "Thank you for attending this wonderful gathering. My name is Zeus, the leader of the 7 deadly sins," spoke Khan as Zeus in a kingly voice. The next moment, he and all the subordinates retracted their grim aura and allowed everyone to finally breathe in relief. "There's a reason why I had my men gather all of you despite the great distance you've had to travel to get here. It is something that gravely affects your future," he spoke. Many who finally felt a sense of relief instantly had their ears perked as everyone understood that the man in front of them wasn't playing around but had something very important to say. Something that would greatly affect them. "After Con Salvatore, the new sovereign of this fiefdom imprisoned your leaders, seized your resources, sealed the properties owned by your respective organizations, and took away all of your possessions. The current underworld is nothing but a hollow shell of its past," spoke Zeus as he addressed the biggest issue right off the bat. Many people instantly felt dejected again after the harsh reminder. Currently, despite most of you claiming the positions and killing your opposition, the fact remains that things won't be the same as before no matter how hard you try. Because even those people who backed you up from the military, law enforcement, and the government are gone. If you try to start again, it will be no different than starting from scratch as rookies. Plus, managing millions of people under you won't be cheap. And as of now, your criminal empire won't even last for more than a month. Elaborated the semi-saint. This was indeed the fact since after the Covenant soldiers and Khan directly took out their main figureheads, the chain of command had fallen and those who succeeded them did not have any money, influence, or power to keep things running. So I have a proposal to all of those present in this gathering. Spoke Zeus, and his stern voice resounded in the 500-meter-long hall. All of you should join my 7 deadly sins. Under one banner, all of the criminal organizations should be united. Spoke the middle-aged man without hesitation. Gasp! Shock! Almost all of them were bewildered after this proposition reached their ears, because what Zeus said was simply too ambitious. It was something that no one had even dared to dream of. Think about it. We will not only offer you immense wealth and power, but also a systematic network to expand your businesses, legally get contracts and properties to cement your organization in public eyes. This is 100 times better offer than anything those noble factions, government officials, and local forces ever did. Iterated Zeus. Even if you manage to get their support, you should know better. That they will never let someone like you stand in the same room as them. Even the earnings you made in the past. They charged 60% and only gave you 40% of what you made in the name of protection and leaving you alone. But in my organization, you will get 70% of the profits and our share will be only 30%. I also promise that you will have help from the government and law enforcement. Whatever black market or illegal deal you make, we will ensure your safety. Spoke Zeus in a serious tone. The terms he was offering them were simply too good in every aspect. And if one decided to take his deal, they'd be able to even surpass their predecessors in a matter of months. Just then, a few of the people in the hall spoke in a suspicious tone. Even if you say that, he has an army and he is the strongest semi-saint of the empire. And currently, the government itself is run by him. Spoke a Mithran's warrior. Yes, your offer is only acceptable if you truly have the full support and connections in the government. Which I don't think is possible, said a boater donned in purple robes. Why should we trust you? Even if you're a semi-saint, you can't even defeat that man in a fight. Do you want us to get dragged into the people's court as well? Questioned a thrall in yellow attire for mages. Soon, dozens and then hundreds of people started raising their voices against Zeus and his proposition. Because the offer was extremely circumstantial, and if one piece didn't fit, the whole system would crumble. To all their discontent arguments, Zeus didn't even bother paying attention and spoke in a heavy voice. Because I'm someone even Khan Salvatore can't afford to provoke. So think about it carefully. Those who are still interested in accepting my proposal, keep sitting at your tables. And those who do not want to, may stand up and leave. After his words that felt like a slap in their faces, hundreds of leaders stood up from their positions and kept ranting about how Zeus was being too full of himself. Soon, more than 400 people stood up and decided to depart. Nobody dared to ask for the 100 million gold coins that were promised to them for attending this meeting. Because at the end of the day, Zeus was a semi-saint and wouldn't blink twice before killing them if provoked. But just when most of them were ready to depart with their entourage, Zeus gave an order. Raiden. Yes, my lord, replied the silver werewolf and nodded in acknowledgement as if he understood what Zeus wanted him to do. Raiden aka Omega in his werewolf form suddenly disappeared from the podium, and the next moment, a white lightning flash spread across the entire hall and blinded everyone present. Shrill. A loud shrill resounded in the meeting hall, and everyone who was previously blinded by the light and covering their eyes with hands also heard the ear-deafening noise. Kacha. Finally, after a few seconds, everyone regained their sight and looked around to see what happened. And all of them noticed that Raiden suddenly appeared at the other end of the hall. In his hands was a curved blade, and his katana that had lightning running through its blade was revealed to everyone present in the hall. Raiden shook off the blade, then sheathed his sword and looked back at all the people that previously stood up. Thud! Arg! Screamed one of the guests. Thud! 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 Soon, in a succession, heads after heads of the people who previously rejected the offer made by Zeus started dropping on the floor. Blood spurt out of their bodies like a fountain, and in just a dozen seconds, half of the hall was filled with red. And the remaining of the guests were now cowering in fear as soon as they realized the fate of those who haughtily rejected the semi-saint man's offer. And the most unbelievable fact was how Raiden precisely cut open on their necks completely without even letting a mark. Even the dead people hadn't noticed that they were killed when the white flash suddenly blinded everyone. To put the cherry on the top, Raiden killed all these people who stood on different ends of the room and in different positions. Not in a single straight line at all. And the peak Grandmaster killed more than 400 people at once in only 10 seconds at that. Now only did they realize that the hosts of the gathering weren't some posers who'd treat them preferably just because of their positions or their respective organizations. In the eyes of Zeus and his allies, all of them were nothing but prey if they chose to refuse his deal. Great! Now we have more positions that could be held by you guys. Spoke Zeus in a merry tone as if he was elated by the fact that there were lesser people now. Boom! However, he revealed his full killing intent on the remainder of the guests the next moment. Looks like I have been too courteous. He spoke in a grim voice and continued in a domineering tone that sent shivers down their spine. Let's change the terms of our contract, shall we? As soon as Zeus and his subordinates revealed their intentions, everyone present in the room came to a certain realization. That Zeus never had any intentions to give any of them that much freedom, to begin with. And like ignorant morons, they thought rejecting his offer was a viable choice. Some people really don't know what's good for them. If they can't even understand the gravity of the situation, how can they be useful for the long run? I was only testing whether all of you were deserving of my trust. But despite offering everyone a once-in-a-lifetime deal, many were still incapable to see the bigger picture. Anyway, now that we have fewer people to worry about, how about we discuss the new terms of our contract? Asked Zeus in an ominous tone. This was his plan from the very beginning. To test who was at least smart enough to understand that there was more than meets the eye and hence chose to not reject his offer right away. To Khan, he couldn't leave the fiefdom's crime syndicate in the hands of morons, so he had Omega takes care of more than 400 of these people in a flash. The magic swordsman subordinate had been honing his katana fighting skills like a samurai for a long time and wanted to display the progress to his master anyway. And this was a perfect opportunity given how not only Khan but everyone present in the Grand Hall was out of words. Omega was simply too fast for any of them to even see, and other than Khan, not even Oliver and Jugram could see his top speed. Omega's speed and accuracy as a swordsman were simply too terrifying. And if other subordinates were to fight him, even they would have to be afraid for their life because he was an opponent they couldn't even see unless he allowed them to. As for Khan himself, everything was going just as he planned a long time ago. Under the name of the People's Court, he ruled and controlled the government and military after planning 10 steps ahead. And using the prisoners sent from the corners of the empire, he created a force of his own to impose the law and order which helped in working on a grand scale he had never operated on before. And after gaining the support from the citizens themselves, he became a figure whose authority and motives couldn't be questioned by anyone as it would be considered blasphemy. But there were still 2 sectors that he needed to control with his own hands. And one of them was the underworld of the Verlassen fiefdom. So using the Covenant Va People's Court as his means, he took out all the ruling heads after Omega, Oliver, Jugram played as the rich customers, and the Stark brothers found out all the headquarters of thousands of criminal organizations. Because one way or another, the crime never ended no matter how good the ruler was. Khan wasn't an idiot to believe that just because he put 100 guys in jail or even executed them, other people will let go of their greed and ambitions. Because some men aren't looking for anything logical like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And undoubtedly, they'd soon become an eyesore for him and his authority. Plus, after seeing the merits of running 7 deadly sins in Rukon district in the capital, which greatly aided him in expanding his reach, connections, wealth, especially during the Emperor's chosen competition. Khan knew it was a sector he just couldn't ignore. Hence, gathering all the top figureheads of the underworld that he himself dismantled in one place, he was going to upgrade his crime syndicate from level 1 to directly level 10. Soon, he'd be an undisputed ruler of the underworld as Zeus while he ruled the fiefdom in broad daylight as Khan. This was also something necessary for the next and final phase of his plans. Under the fearful gazes of the remainder of the people, Zeus took out the blood oath token that baffled everyone, and now all of them felt like their fates were completely sealed. After the blood oath token ritual is performed under the terrifying and deathly auras of these several powerful beings which carried till the next morning, Khan made all of them as his slaves and distributed what criminal organizations and which area they'd control. So in simple words, he had the government, military, and now the underworld in the palm of his hands within just 1 month of this arrival to his fiefdom. The next after Khan returned to his castle, he held another meeting between the generals and started discussing his next move. "So when is he coming?" asked Khan to Ronan. "In 4 days, my lord. We should be done preparing everything by then as well," reported the rogue general. "Good. After his arrival, not only we can control the arms distribution sector of the fiefdom but also have complete hegemony over the military and government. Plus, with the rising numbers of Covenant soldiers, we need more supplies every day, and waiting for the shipments from the capital is rather inconvenient," said Khan while he was seated on his throne. "Yes, master. Compared to the capital, we won't have to spend any money on resources or raw materials here because everything is already under our control. And we don't even have to answer to anyone about where all the resources were used or company did we assign to manage them and for what reason," spoke Omega as he nodded. Khan then slightly grinned and then further evaluated the next phase of their plans. Because despite gaining control over all these sectors of the fiefdom, there was still a need to rule another sector that was extremely profitable and important if he truly wanted to become the sovereign of this place. Khan let out a sinister smile and spoke in an excited tone as he revealed the next and the final stage of his plans. Time to control the economy. 4 days later, on the left side of Khan's castle, one of his warships arrived in a 5-kilometer radius open ground with a particular guest aboarding it. Long queues of Covenant soldiers lined up on both sides and welcomed the grand personage who visited their fiefdom despite being one of the most famous people in the whole Rocco's empire. Showa! The exit door of the warship finally opened and a squad of master rank soldiers escorted an old man with a properly trimmed white beard and long hair. This person emitted an aura of mastery and wisdom just from his appearance alone. And as soon as his envoy exited the warship, there was a group awaiting this person. And in the center of this group, the sovereign of the Verlassen fiefdom stood with his subordinates. "Took you long enough to invite me here. I thought you completely forgot about me after winning this fiefdom," spoke the old man in a sarcastic tone. "Well, I thought you'd die from the journey alone, so I had to be considerate of your old age," replied Khan with a coy smile. "This brat," scoffed the old man and then gave a light smile instead. He quickly walked towards Khan and gave him a bear hug in front of the army of thousands of soldiers. The old man being none other than the peak Grandmaster Blacksmith Albestros Winston, one of the only normal people Khan trusted in this new life. Stop embarrassing me. I have thousands of people watching me. Who do you think I am, old fart?" revolted Khan in annoyance. Yeah. Whatever," spoke Albestros and ruffled Khan's hair. "Ersh, now I already regret calling you here," rebuked Khan and started walking towards the luxurious carriage that came to pick them up. "How's the sword, Omega? You better be treating it like it's your wife," joked the old man as he looked at Omega. "Yes, it is in good condition, Sir Winston. I must say that the blade keeps getting sharper and cuts like a hot knife through butter," responded Omega as he escorted the duo to the carriage. After they reached inside the castle, the old man relaxed in one of the rooms while Khan ordered his subordinates to gather again. 2 hours later, in a private and secured room, all the subordinates except Cyril, who was on a vacation for a month, were gathered along with Albestros. "I must say, kid, I'm really proud of you, although I'm sure you didn't do it out of some goodwill," Still, the People's Court is a breath of fresh air for many people. Now, all those noble clans and factions are controlled by an invisible leash and nobody dares to act out as if they own the place. Hell, even those top 3 factions are watching their steps these days. Any mistake and they're afraid of incurring public wrath. Their authority and strength doesn't help in oppressing people like it used to before, said the old man in an elated expression. Well, it was a dangerous card I used. Glad it turned out well, replied Khan. So how's the company doing these days? Any problems? Asked Khan out of curiosity. The next moment, however, the old man's expression constricted and he shook his head. After you were gone, nothing changed for a few weeks. But soon, one after another, our biggest clients started pulling off our contracts and even compensated the collateral money for voiding our deals without a hitch. Although no one openly spoke about it or pointed any fingers towards anyone. It was obvious to me that it was because of you. As of now, the Bloodborne Company is 60% in loss since all of our big clients have left. And some of our dealers have stopped providing us with raw materials too. I barely managed to create all those armors and weapons you asked me for by using all of our remaining reserves, explained the old man with a dejected face. TCH, petty bastards, acting all high and mighty in front of normal people and pulling these childish shenanigans behind the doors. Scoffed off Khan as he felt angry after hearing the old man. Sirius is managing things on his own. He's very capable, but there's a limit on how much he can do without having your direct backing. The poor orc was also threatened a few times in the main office by some of the government officials in the name of search warrants for tax evasions. If not for you pulling out all the money from the competition through that underworld organization of yours, we would have been in great trouble, iterated the old man. I expected as much. That's why we brought it all here and used the money to expand our influence and popularity. Well, not like we need those loser factions now anyway, spoke Khan and then leaned forward. We will shift our base here and treat Capital as our side branch. I will also call Sirius here to hold command. We will be needing him more than ever, he said. For what? Asked Albestros with a curious expression. Because of what I have in mind. Soon all those noble factions will realize that by messing with you, they threw an axe at their own feet. Spoke Khan. A wide grin appeared on his face. Armin, he called out the Pathfinder subordinate who had invoked legendary rank job after getting mixed with the peak Grandmaster alchemist Prithvi Aranya, one of the oldest friends of Albestros who died a pitiful death a year ago when Khan and the old man visited him and was later used by Khan to upgrade Armin. It's about time you get to work and prove your worth. I better see that all those alchemy resources I spent a fortune for actually became useful, spoke Khan as he pointed his finger. Finally, spoke Armin as he jolted in happiness. My hands have been itching from a long time, spoke the brown-haired subordinate as he was the only one till now who hadn't been useful ever since Khan went to the capital Rathna and now set up his rule in Verlassen fiefdom. Soon, Khan told Albestros and the rest of the subordinates an elaborated plan that hatched in mind a long time ago. This was indeed the final phase of his master plan to rule the fiefdom as an undisputed sovereign. Aren't you being too greedy? Asked the old blacksmith with an expression of disbelief. What can I say? Replied Khan with a sinister smile and continued in an ecstatic voice. Greedy is my middle name. On the following day at the time of the afternoon, when the normal populace of the fiefdom was going about their daily lives and working their way to shoulder the struggle of life for the sake of putting 2 meals a day in their stomachs, a sudden announcement resounded through millions of broadcasting screens placed in all the cities, towns and villages, that today's trials for the People's Court would be postponed. However, a very important announcement that directly affects the lives of the working class of the fiefdom will be made in the evening. So all the citizens should be prepared beforehand. This piqued the curiosity of all the people ranging from different species and classes of society. And as the 2 suns in Vantria set and the blanket of the dark was spread over the Rocco's empire, Khan's figure donned in grey general-like clothes appeared in front of the whole Verlassen fiefdom. People of the fiefdom, today, I have to make an important announcement that plays a vital role in your day-to-day lives. So please listen carefully to what I have to say. spoke Khan in his usual calm and collected manner as his stern voice resounded in the ears of all the citizens. As you might know that recently, a plethora of cases related to the functioning of the fiefdom itself, let it be from the government, military, underworld, or even the economical sectors that were run only by selected groups of individuals, clans and officials have been brought to the people's court. And you have seen how the chunk of influential people are basically playing with your lives to accomplish their goals and greed for power and authority. And the severity of their crimes was to an extent that it led to the deaths of the millions of normal and hardworking innocent people. Elaborated Khan as he reminded everyone about the grave matter at hand. Even the economic sector was not left from the corruption and scams. Many organizations that dealt in the businesses related to monster hunts and resources that came from them, and the ones who specialized in mana core mining sectors, have been proven to be as guilty as the other criminals that came before in people's court. So that has forced me to take some drastic measures and create a new infrastructure that is fair to everyone whose life depends on professions related to these sectors. So before I evaluate further, there are two people I want to introduce to everyone watching this broadcast. Spoke Khan and waved his hand towards the left. The projection artifacts then moved to the left and focused on the two individuals who were dressed in red and white regal clothes. The former was an old man who appeared to be a blacksmith, while the brown-haired man who seemed to be near his 30s, dressed in alchemist clothes. The following second, both of them decided to introduce themselves. Hello everyone. My name is Armin Ayurveda. I'm a peak Grandmaster alchemist. Spoke Armin, who was in his human appearance. And I'm Albestros Winston, a peak Grandmaster blacksmith. Spoke the old man. Gasp. Shock. More than 100 million people who had their eyes glued to the broadcast screens were surprised to their cores. Because in the history of Verlassen Mountain Range, there has never been a peak Grandmaster blacksmith or an alchemist. These types of people were only found in the capital Rathna. So this sudden revelation caught all of them by surprise. Besides, the name of the old man Albestros was already famous in the whole Rocco's empire after the emperor's chosen competition, and Khan winning the competition while using the armor and sword made by this very man. He was like a figure worshipped by millions of people who worked in the arms manufacturing field. And top of that, there was a young but extremely talented man who seemed to be a peak Grandmaster alchemist. This was a testament to his skills, as the rank in these two professions only rose when someone reached a completely different level of mastery of their craft. I shall not waste your time anymore. Today's announcement is to coordinate the establishment of two new federations that will oversee all the business organizations, whether small or big, and ensure the quality of their goods and products. Given how previously, no such organization existed and only the wealthy with connections received favors from corrupted officials and military officers, which led to the death of millions of people. These two federations shall be led by these two grandmasters. Spoke Khan. The federation that would trademark and approve the quality of alchemy-related products, recipes, and their usefulness from all the related business organizations will be led by Sir Armin. And the name of that federation shall be Hippocrates. Revealed Khan in a vehement voice. As for the federation overseeing the weapons and arms manufacturing sector, and all the related business shall be led by Sir Albestros Winston. And that federation shall be called Hephaestus. He revealed. Both these names were chosen by Khan himself as he felt it appropriate to name them after the greatest physician of the ancient Greece and the Greek god of fire va metallurgy respectively. Before any of you feel worried, let me explain. Our objective isn't to have a monopoly over these sectors that greatly affect our daily lives and the economy, but to establish a self-sustainable economic system that allows all the companies to share and create top-quality products and alchemy recipes at the same time. These forging and alchemy manuscripts and blueprints will be shared by these two peak grandmasters themselves to those who join these federations. And those who join them will be given a 30% tax exemption from the government itself. Spoke Khan as he revealed extremely lucrative offers. And the main reason was to lure in as many people as he could in the name of mandating the quality of products and goods which would ensure their customers to be carefree. And also round up all the business organizations under one banner. However, who would be Khan if not having a scheming mind that knew how to mask his real goals under the name of public welfare? What he was offering the people was just a poster. The real truth behind establishing these two federations was something only he and his allies knew. Because this was only half of the plan. Khan relayed his plans to the entire populace of the Verlassen fiefdom and spoke about how quality standards should be established before anything was even allowed to be sold to normal people. Because till this point, the more reputed and wealthy one company was, the more they sold to the masses and had their hands filled with government deals that basically resulted in a drop in the quality of goods and also implicated millions of lives, such as poor quality weapons for the soldiers or useless health recovery potions that were used by the adventurers who hunted in the wild. But the main objective of creating these two federations was to mandate all the companies in these two fields because the majority of the jobs such as forging, crafting, even food sectors, technology sectors that needed these cores, as well as alchemy, were dependent on the monster huntings in this fiefdom. 87% of the economy itself was heavily reliant on these two sectors, so by creating these two federations, Khan and his people could mandate who was selling what, if the quality was good or not, and most importantly, he could decide whom they should approve or not. If one chose to not join these two federations, they'd be labeled as someone whose quality of products couldn't be trusted, and eventually, they won't be able to do any business in the market anyway. Because once the customers themselves became aware of the trademarks and approval of quality from the federations, they'd instinctively choose the verified goods. That's why Khan used both Albestros and Armin, two peak grandmasters, to hold the command of these federations so no one could question their authority and skills to judge these products and the business organizations that would sell them in the market. Plus, the 30% tax exemption was an extremely alluring offer for everyone because that'd save them a lot of wealth as well. The bigger companies would save a huge ton of profits by joining these two federations. And now, the biggest ace in Khan's sleeves was also going to turn up. The whole act of creating these two new federations was just a front for him. Because using them, Khan was going to set up his own business empire. He knew that if he used the Bloodborne Company or created a new alchemy company in Armin's name, others would use it to tarnish his name sooner or later anyway. So in the name of search and seizure warrants, he had acquired all the assets of the top business organizations by bringing in their leaders in people's court, and after they were proven guilty, the assets belonged to fiefdom, aka Khan himself. And now that he had the underworld in his palms, he would use them all to create hundreds of companies, give them these properties to establish their organizations, and use the leaders of those criminal organizations he made slaves out of to hold command here. This way, Khan would be able to legalize them and use these shell corporations to funnel the black money at the same time. And after joining the federations, they'd be legally allowed to establish themselves in the whole fiefdom, and through them, not only will Khan control the underworld, he will also rule the business world at the same time. They'd have resources, backing from the government and military, licenses to make deals in particular areas and sectors. So in the end, everything would go into Khan's own pockets. All the black money will be turned white and will directly go into his pockets. So in simple words, he'd be the richest man in the whole fiefdom, and no one could even point any fingers at him. Although it was unfair, Khan didn't care about those who hadn't joined his side and wanted full hegemony as well as a monopoly in every sector of the fiefdom to establish his complete rule. Plus, the government and military were already in his control. And now, with the underworld and economic sector also under his hands, with the full support from the people themselves, Khan's authority itself was unquestionable. Next week, Albestros also announced that he would make Asir as the new headquarters of his weapon manufacturing company and will do his best to provide quality products to the military of this region, that he would personally take responsibility for them. So Khan offered the arms dealing with the Bloodborne Company and declared that they'd make sure that no scam or underhanded deal affects the lives of the innocent people and the soldiers of the fiefdom. While with his help and full support, Armin also set up his own company named Ayurveda, which would be making all alchemy-related products such as potions, antidotes, and cures to many illnesses and diseases. And with full support from Khan and every sector of government, they had no problems in creating a big business empire of themselves because unlike the capital Rathna, they didn't have a problem finding good locations for the factories, warehouses, or properties to function as the base of opposition. At the same time, many talented and skilled people joined their companies because they wanted to learn from the peak grandmasters themselves and hone their skills. So in the matter of weeks alone, These two companies became the leading spearheads of their respective fields without a slight resistance because Khan had already taken out their competition. Later, Khan gave mining and monster hunting contracts to hundreds of different companies that were actually operated by his 7 deadly sins throughout the fiefdom, so nobody could even detect his involvement. Even the adventurers' associations throughout the fiefdom were controlled by him from behind the shadows, and now he had the support from all the fighter-class organizations as well. One by one, he was controlling every aspect of the fiefdom and ruled over them. After another 1 month passed by and Khan had established all his companies, he had everything in his control after thoroughly planning and setting things in his favor. With each step, he had set up a foundation to rule the next sector systematically. And with all these important sectors in his hands, Khan had become the true sovereign. While Khan had become an undisputed overlord of the Verlassen fiefdom in just the matter of 2 months by strategically taking out his opposition and people from the 3 factions who were bound to be his enemies sooner in one way or another, while giving them no time to react. The top 3 noble factions of the Rocco's empire had nothing but a severe headache because of his actions. When Khan won the emperor's chosen competition, they all thought that more likely knew that he'd only be ruler in just the name and won't actually hold any authority over it. Because the government was theirs, the military was controlled by them, and even the economic sector was ruled by the business organizations and corporations that were also part of their factions and clans. Even the local clans and forces couldn't stand against them despite the fiefdom being their home ground, so who was Khan? A nameless nobody with zero support from any one of their factions to rule such a vast region by himself. But the little snake actually turned out to be a dragon who not only overthrew their rule and authority of over a century but also got rid of everyone who belonged to and served their side. To put the icing on the cake, he did it lawfully and proved their crimes not only to the citizens of the Verlassen but throughout the whole empire itself. His actions had caused them so much trouble that all of them had to bow down their heads, and for the first time in the millennium of this empire's existence, they actually had to watch their every step before they made a slight move. And since no saint could enter that region, there was nobody who could stop him either. The only one who tried to get in his way was publicly executed by Khan on a live broadcast. Now Khan was the true sovereign and they were more like the outsiders. At this moment, inside the core region of the capital Rathna, a grand meeting between the top 3 factions of the empire was held in an estate so long and wide that even 50,000 people could be housed at once like a small city. This was none other than the previous residence of the fallen imperial family. And the main throne hall where all the top saints of the Rocco's empire belonging to the 3 noble factions had gathered was the very place where the previous emperor held his meetings. At the end of this hall, the 3 faction leaders were seated on their respective thrones, and all of the people present here were in a heated discussion. Bang! With each passing day, he's becoming even a bigger nuisance. And now he had completely unified that whole place under his rule. Our losses are simply too big, unlike that competition, spoke Stalin, the faction leader of the neutral faction. The government, the military, all the business corporations, and even the local clans, all of them are under his control now. Those who oppose him are taken down using that people's court. The biggest headache of them all, spoke Alistair, the faction leader of the Pureblood faction. What are you so surprised about? Didn't he join your side during the competition? The way he systematically took everyone out. It feels like there's someone extremely experienced giving him the instructions. Otherwise, how the hell would a guy without any expertise other than fighting knows to take down the entire infrastructure itself in just a couple of months? To me, it feels like he's either working for your faction or maybe even the enemy empires at this point. Snarled Jeremiah, the old elven leader of the demi-human faction. Are you accusing me of breaking the blood oath? You old stick. Then why am I not dead yet? Retorted the old vampire leader. Stop it, you two. The more I see it. All of us have greatly suffered because of him. And with the Verlassen mountain range gone from our hands, the monopoly and absolute dominance all 3 of our factions had is gone. Now if he wants to, he can even stop the supply of monster cores and ores along with the resources from the monster harvesting. You do realize how greatly it affects the whole structure of our capital itself, right? Spoke Stalin, the white-bearded tigerkin. After his words, the entire hall turned deathly silent. Just then, Ismaetrezl stood up from his seat and asked for permission to speak. If I may, great faction leaders, I have had some experience with that boy, and my biggest mistake was to underestimate him. Surprisingly, he's someone who is already 3 steps ahead of everyone. If he can't make things work in his favor with force, then he finds a way to tackle using several schemes that even we can't predict. Him choosing that region as fiefdom and now overtaking it so easily feels as if he planned it years ago. Even the whole competition felt like he knew he was going to win regardless of how many tricks we pulled. Spoke the Vanderite clan leader and the son of the Pureblood faction leader. Next, a man in silver armor stood up and spoke in a serious tone. Great faction leaders, I have had my share of encounters with him as well. That Khan Salvatore, he's extremely unpredictable. Spoke Stronov Michelson, the #1 swordsman of the Empire. He's like a predator who knows whom he should hunt and whom he shouldn't fight against. He picks his opponents wisely and avoids unnecessary risks as much as he can. And most importantly, he knows when to back down and when to endure the oppression from the enemy. He's not a chess piece because he's weak. I'd rather say that he is someone who likes to control the whole game itself. And if he's choosing to take these actions despite knowing that he'd earn the ire of all 3 top noble factions, I think there's even a bigger picture that even we can't see. Iterated Stronov in a heavy tone. The grim atmosphere turned even more dreary. Every sector has his people, and even the semi-saints we have there can't do anything against him. Because people, law, and government itself fully supports him. And the semi-saints we have there already reported long ago that he has evidence against them too. Just that he chose to not reveal it for some reason yet. Spoke Alistair in a grim tone. Even if we were to send more semi-saints, we have no excuse or a reason. And if we're to send already established and renowned figures, he'd soon find some dirt on them one way or another. So we need to send those who can rival him in talent and doesn't have any track record of crime or anything that can be held against them. Spoke Jeremiah in a thoughtful tone. Just then, Alistair spoke again. What about the fresh blood? Gasp. Shock. Everyone was bewildered as soon as they heard the proposition. What's there to be worried about? That place won't get opened in the next 8 months anyway, regardless of the region we send them from. At least by then, we can do a lot of damage control and find a way to regain our fallen influence and image. Otherwise, Verlassen would never be recoverable no matter what we do. He explained. After this proposition, another heated discussion occurred for another hour and the 3 factions' leaders declared the final verdict. Prepare everything necessary and order them to depart by next week. Another week passed by and now, there was perfect harmony in the Verlassen fiefdom under the rule of their sovereign who had made their lives better in many ways by abolishing unnecessary taxes, creating thousands of new facilities and job opportunities for those without work where everyone would be given a job based on their skills and capabilities, and most importantly, he created a system that allowed people to apply for said positions through the government outlets, created in every city and town. Khan, on the other hand, was finally content after fully gaining control over the fiefdom. Now everything was in his hands, and whatever happened in every part of the empire and sectors reached his ears without delay. The information network had risen to a great level, and now, nobody made any big moves without his approval first. The generals and Omega were left in charge of being the people in command, each of whom looked after one sector. Omega was in charge of the Covenant army that now had 52 million soldiers in it, while Jugram was left in charge of the military to who even the other semi-saints had to report to. Oliver controlled the air force, such as their warships, weaponry, and flying ships throughout the fiefdom. Armin was the head of the Hippocrates Federation as well as the owner of the Ayurveda Alchemy Company, the leading figure of the alchemy corporations. Cyril had yet to return for some reasons, so he and Blackwell were the only ones without a vital role so far. Ronan, as usual, controlled the entire information infrastructure of the fiefdom, as well as the 7 deadly sins in the background. The Bloodborne Va Ayurveda Company was now thriving on a completely different scale. Just the first month's earnings of both were above 4 quadrillions. And the 7 deadly sins that not only controlled the underworld but also Khan's business empire under many established corporations was gaining a lot of authority. Khan alone controlled 90% of the economy through them, and even the Adventurers Association that made the highest contributions in hunting monster resources was also controlled by him. Plus, with the military in his servitude, there was no form of resistance either inside the fiefdom or on the borders. The People's Court has become a weekly thing now. And each week, a hearing would be held because Khan didn't want it to lose its effect anytime soon. Using this opportunity, Khan decided to establish a news network to report various happenings over the cities and regions of the fiefdom, and in the evening, a 1-hour segment reporting everything such as a major construction project for the people or funds issued for hospitals in a particular city were announced. For the first time in the history of this region, people felt like their lives were as important as the upper class of the society because before Khan, they would only hear such broadcasts when the matter was related to the government or noble factions which had absolutely no relevance to their day-to-day lives. And the public of the empire in various regions, as well as the capital, found his administration more appealing than the one they had in their regions. This way, people got to know what happened in what city. Even things such as murders cases were reported while hiding the identity of the victims, and the criminals would be jailed and kept in custody till the hearing in People's Court. Incidents of monster attacks and the number of casualties over various hunting grounds and forests spread over the fiefdom weren't shied away from either. Khan's new government was legally allocating various resources and funds for the public welfare, and the amount was also announced during these broadcasts. And through this method, Khan also cemented his public support as a righteous ruler who responded to public demands rather than just sitting behind the walls in his castle. For the normal people, it felt like they had finally seen the golden days and actually felt proud of belonging to the Verlassen fiefdom, which Khan promised them on the first day of his arrival. As the week came close to the end, Khan held a meeting where all the generals, albestros, and the new figureheads of the military, as well as the government that loyally served him, were present. More than 3,000 people were now seated in 3 different levels of platforms, and each of them had an important part to play in his regime in different cities and sectors. Ronan started reading an official announcement from the government of the capital Rathna and relayed the message, and revealed that the capital is sending new semi-saints to learn and train under the military officers, as they are the promising talent of the next generations and would play a vital role in the future of the empire. And since the monster this year is expected to be bigger than usual, they wish to lend a helping hand by sending these young prodigies and many forces as well warships to serve and protect the people. However, after hearing this declaration, everyone had an irritated expression on their face. Khan, who sat on his black and golden throne while donned in his gray general-like attire, spoke in a solemn tone. As you all can see, this is nothing but bullshit. If they truly wanted to help, they should have sent 20 to 30 semi-saints who have experience in real-life battles against enemy empires or monster outbreaks. But they're sending these newbies in the name of training them, so you can understand their objectives. Everyone present in the grand throne room nodded in affirmation. Even the semi-saint commanders of the noble factions had their heads down at this moment. What do we do now, my lord? It's not like we can tell them to return. If we do so, it will give a bad reputation to your name. And I'm certain the 3 factions from the capital will use it to defame you throughout the empire, saying that you value your pride and sovereignty more than the lives of common people, and that's why you refused their help. Spoke a Mithran's minister of the government. Well, we will have no choice but to play along for now. However, no matter what happens, do not succumb to their oppression, strength, or whatever they may offer you. He spoke in a domineering voice as he looked towards the crowd seated in the hall. Their goal isn't to help the fiefdom, but to regain their fallen reputation in the eyes of the common people. If any of you are forced one way or another, just report back to the peak grandmasters of my council. I will personally get rid of the issues, affirmed Khan. He then stood up and walked forward towards the center of the throne room. Just remember one thing, he spoke in a grim tone. This is our house and they're the invaders. And how do we treat the invaders? Spoke and asked Khan as he relayed his true intentions to all his subjects. We make them regret the moment they targeted us. The very next day, 4 warships belonging to different clans arrive at Asir, capital of the Verlassen fiefdom. their destination being none other than the main castle of the sovereign. Whoosh! Whoosh! Extremely fast warships flew over the tall and enormous buildings of the capital and earned the interests of the normal citizens who heard them. After all four of the gigantic warships that could carry 20,000 soldiers at once landed on the open grounds of Khan's enormously large and wide estate, troops of thousands of Covenant soldiers that were queued up at four different ends welcomed the arrival of these guests. For differently colored warships with different sigils of their respective clans opened their main doors and four envoys of highly prestigious noble clans exited with a semi-saint in the center. All these people were Omega, Ronin, Jugram and Oliver at their respective ends, and soon, a batch of flying magic vehicles arrived to pick them up and escort them to the main castle. These four individuals were none other than Cassandra Michelson of the Michelson clan, the runner-up of the Emperor's chosen competition who belonged to Neutral Faction. Celine Armitage of Neutral Faction, who was nicknamed as the Dual Sword Saintess among the younger generation of top prodigies. Victor Apopes of the Demi-Human Faction, the half-breed demonkin who fought Khan in the semi-finals. And Ezekiel Nabi of the Pure Blood Faction, the young semi-saint mage whose nature was yet to be known by many. They were escorted to the main throne room where Khan, the other semi-saints, and all the 18 figureheads of the government and military were discussing things among themselves. Thud, thud, thud. The envoy of the semi-saints that were assisted with peak grandmasters as their allies walked in towards the end of this 500 meters long throne hall where the most important matters of the entire Verlassen fiefdom were discussed by the new ruling sovereign. Amidst Cassandra's envoy was a young blonde knight and a redhead peak grandmaster swordsmaiden. These were her cousins, namely Isaac and Veronica Michelson, the latter being another opponent Khan had fought against during the competition. Apologies for not being able to receive you myself. I was busy with important matters, spoke Khan, who was seated on his grand black and golden throne. He was soon surrounded by the four subordinates and the 5 semi-saint commanders who were also seated on their respective luxurious chairs. Just then, Khan sensed 2 malicious auras from the 4 envoys present in the throne hall. His eyes then gazed at 2 half-breed demunkins among the group. One was a white-haired female with 1 long and 1 short red horn. On the waist of her black and red armor were 2 glimmering red swords. The female was Celine Armitage, while the other individual was Victor Apopes. What kind of lame and uneventful welcome is this? As a host, you should be more willing to create time for us. We better see a grand welcoming ceremony for our welcome at night, spoke Victor, the semi-saint scythe user who once fought Khan in front of the whole empire. The next moment, the entire atmosphere of the room turned ghastly, and not just Khan's generals but the 2 commanders who pledged their loyalty to Khan months ago also had an angry expression instantly. But before they could even speak, Khan raised his left hand and signaled them to keep quiet. Are you here for a vacation or something? The last time I checked, you were here to serve as trainees and backup for the military outposts. So why should there be any grand welcome ceremony or a banquet held for you? Asked Khan in a sarcastic tone. Boom! The next second, both of them released their aura of semi-saints as Khan openly berated them for having such foolish notions. Know your place. Who do you think you're talking to? I guess your parents didn't teach you any manners. Well, what's there to expect from a nameless orphan? Mocked Celine in a contemptuous tone. Boom! However, the next moment, 2 more deathly auras erupted from both sides of the room. These didn't belong to Khan or his generals but both Commander Stark and Commander Mormont, who revealed their killing intent on both half-breed demunkins. Both of them were stronger semi-saints than these 2 brats, and since neither of them didn't belong to any of the noble factions, they weren't afraid of provoking these overly prideful young heirs. The next person to speak was none other than Ezekiel Nabi, the human mage prodigy who was 3 years older than Khan. I don't care if you're the new sovereign or something. Just don't be under the assumption that you're better than us because you won that competition, spoke the semi-saint mage. There was no pride or malice in his tone, just that he felt like he was being looked down on here by Khan, and he certainly didn't find it appealing. After his words, Khan then turned his gaze to Cassandra, the Raven Sorceress and the one he thought as the true number 1 prodigy of the Empire. He raised an eyebrow and locked his gaze with her, as if asking, you want to say something too, Cassandra? who looked as charming as the day she fought Khan in the finals, suddenly averted her gaze as if she wanted to say, "I don't know these people." Khan sighed deeply and rested his face on his right palm as he felt entertaining a bunch of little kids. "Ah, these brats. Who the hell raised these morons? They're acting all special and overbearing right in front of the one guy who can beat their ass. Do they skip teaching common sense in those 3 factions and noble clans?" Questioned Khan to himself. Other than Cassandra, the 3 young semi-saints seemed like they hadn't grasped the situation properly even now and acted like they visited the house of one of their lackeys or vassals. Boom! An ear-deafening burst of black and red aura suddenly filled the entire hall as dark fog mixed with this extremely terrifying pressure quickly froze the 3 young semi-saints. This aura was so dense and oppressive that it was equivalent to the aura of a legitimate first-stage saint. "Looks like you still don't get it," said Khan with all his killing intent released on the 3 who released their aura on him together. Then he spoke in a grim and tyrannical voice that sent shivers in their spines. "I am better than you." Khan's declaration resounded in the throne hall as his voice echoed in the presence of all the important figureheads of the fiefdom. His words revealed in an imposing manner sent goosebumps on the bodies of the 3 semi-saints who dared to defy his authority and spoke as if they were looking down on him. Flabbergasted, all the new arrivals were overwhelmingly bewildered by Khan's sudden revelation of his true strength through his aura. Because all of them had personally received training from the saints of their respective clans and factions for over a month prior to the Emperor's Chosen competition, so they perfectly knew how intense and terrifying the aura of a saint was. Impossible! How did he become this strong? It's only been 2 months, thought Cassandra with a shocked expression, unable to believe the sudden spike in Khan's strength. Out of everyone present in this room, she had fought against Khan at his best in the finale, and they were equally matched with their heaven-defying talent until Khan pulled his ultimate skill at the last moment. However, the current oppressive aura he emitted was many times denser and heavier than before. So the Raven sorceress who previously thought she was weaker than Khan only by a few times was also left speechless on the spot. And the next second, Khan's image flickered and appeared in the middle of this trio who already seemed ready to fight. My, are you 3 under the impression that just because we're all semi-saints means you can fight me as equals? You still don't seem to understand the hierarchy of power here. Spoke Khan as his terrifying aura almost made the 3 people cave in. Just then, all 3 of them put their hands on their weapons and tried to retaliate. Shing! Before Celine could even pull out her dual swords, a long and white blade was put on her neck, and the one to do it was none other than Commander Stark. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, little girl. This isn't your clan or faction where the stronger people than you will tolerate your measly strength and shenanigans because of your position as the heiress. Move an inch and I will cut your head off," warned the old swordsman with an intense killing intent released from his body. On the other side, Commander Mormont, the dwarven semi-saint, spoke to Ezekiel who tried to cast a spell using his scepter. "My warhammer is specially made to break past the defenses of the magical class. Try casting a spell and I will break every bone in your body, boy. And believe me, I want you to try," he threatened in his heavy and rustic voice. Both the commanders and their military houses had sworn their allegiance to Khan, so no way would they allow a bunch of young and ignorant rich brats to pull out a weapon against their lord. Sigh. A deep sigh was suddenly heard and everyone paid attention to the source. And the one to sigh so loudly was none other than Cassandra, who suddenly had a dejected face as if she suffered a great loss already. And without caring about the current stalemate between Khan, his people and the young semi-saints, she walked away from the crowd and sat down on a vacant chair that was left for their group before the whole scenario came to this moment. Isaac and Veronica followed and stood behind her seat like her bodyguards without giving a glance at the current situation as well. An attendant quickly offered Cassandra an aromatic tea, and she casually took a sip while averting her eyes from her fellow semi-saints and their people as if saying, "That's none of my business." Khan too, for some reason, wasn't surprised by this behavior and spoke to the 3 young people. In age, all 3 of them were older than him and Cassandra by 2 to 3 years, but in his mind, he was already 31 years old now, so he thought of everyone here as nothing but a bunch of kindergarten kids since he was a few years older than them mentally. Now then, let me bring you all out of your delusions. Your factions sent you here in the name of training and supporting the people. And the best way is to actually fight on the outposts where the monsters frequently attack. But remember, all of you are only substitutes there, and I will assign you under the commander of my choosing. So eat up, go take a rest, and await my orders," spoke Khan in his kingly voice. Just then, Victor, the half-breed demonkin and the one who had the true demon bloodline, spoke in an infuriated tone. "You think you'll get away with insulting us?" he said with clenched fists, almost ready to swing his scythe at Khan's neck. But instead of trying to reason with him, Khan's eyes suddenly flashed yellow as soon as he made eye contact with the demonkin. Executioner's gaze. Khan finally used the executioner's gaze for the first time since the competition. Every one of the three semi-saints was stronger than him before, but now that his levels surpassed them all, the skill could finally be used on them. His gaze then turned to all three. "You're not a special case or some talented prodigies here. This is my turf. You don't stand at the top of the food chain here at all. So watch your steps or I'll cut down your feet if any of you overstep the boundaries," he warned in a serious tone. Khan then walked closer to the paralyzed demonkin, who was the loudest of them all. He put his hand on Victor's shoulder, who couldn't even move a muscle at this moment and stood still like a lifeless statue. "You speak too much for a guy who couldn't even stand up after just one attack from my Dragon Strike skill," spoke Khan, and the next second, his grip on the semi-saint's shoulder tightened. Crack! Right in front of everyone present in the throne hall, his firm hand dislocates the demonkin's shoulder. But despite the intense pain, Victor couldn't even wail or scream in agony. Khan then came close to his ear and spoke in a grim tone. "Next time you talk to me like that." His following words were still heard by everyone present in the hall. "I'll kill you first and then talk later." After Khan dislocated Victor's shoulder, the demonkin was frozen stiff because he was still under the effect of the executioner's gaze. Their arrival was going completely opposite of what they were initially ordered to do by their factions. And the tables had already turned on them without even knowing. "Listen, dimwits. As long as you're here, you answer to me and not the other way around. If any of you creates problems in any way, I won't be showing any mercy. And you should know by now how I punish criminals," threatened Khan to the three semi-saints prodigies, basically hinting at the people's court where he often publicly executes his enemies and criminals. "Now, I have made arrangements for your accommodations. The commanders from the noble factions will escort you there. And wait till I call upon you. And know this, I'm watching you," he said in a ghastly voice. Under his domineering aura and the two semi-saint commanders who were already stronger than all three of them combined, they had no choice but to swallow down this great punch in the face by Khan, whom they thought as someone beneath them because he was without a background in their eyes. But little did they think that he was already a figure that even they couldn't touch without severe consequences. "Except the entourage from the Michelson clan, everyone else is to leave," commanded Khan. Under the lead of Commander Stark va Mormont, everyone else left the throne hall, and now, aside from Khan, his generals and the three Michelsons, no one else was present in their ongoing meetings. Khan took a golden envelope with the mark of the Michelson clan on it from his space ring, and his gaze then turned to the Raven Sorceress. "Thanks for the heads up. However, don't be under impression that I'm going to side with your clan just for this small favor," he spoke. This was a letter that arrived on the very night when the three top noble factions sent their announcement decree using the government's name about sending the newbie semi-saints. He then looked at Veronica, the redhead peak grandmaster who he once fought in the competition. "And tell your father that I still don't have any intentions to become his disciple," he spoke jokingly. "Gasp!" Veronica gasped in surprise and asked, "He offered you that? When?" "During the competition before the semi-finals," replied Khan nonchalantly. "Ah, so that's what second uncle meant by being cautious if we ever fought. He wanted to recruit you since back then," spoke Cassandra. "He did more than that, but I'd rather keep it a secret," spoke Khan jokingly. He wasn't going to reveal that Stronov Michelson offered to make him his son-in-law. that too right in front of his daughter who could have been his wife if he had accepted. Well, I don't understand why you warned me that all four of you were actually ordered to work together and try to oppress me? Seems like a childish move as I see it. Asked Khan. I'm more curious to ask, why didn't the other two semi-saints of the noble factions back their heirs? And where did you get these many peak grandmasters to begin with? 3 of them are not even their 30s. Spoke Cassandra as she pointed towards Omega, Ronan, Oliver, and Jugram. Or did you blackmail them or something? Asked Cassandra again. A trickster never reveals his secrets. Spoke Khan as he shrugged his arms. So tell me, how do you want me to deal with the matter? I can't be favoring you guys during your stay. If I'm not wrong, today's incident will soon reach the ears of the neutral faction as well. That Celine Armitage will definitely tell them that you didn't choose to partake in the little play. He said again. Cassandra continued sipping her tea and replied in a bored tone. I have my pride as well. These faction wars, politics, and fake display of dominance and authority aren't something I have any interests in. She responded. Let them play their little games and keep me out of it. Unlike them, I'm not here to create trouble for you, but use this opportunity to train myself, hone my skills, and fight in a real-life battle against that monster tide. Since we've already exchanged moves, you should know better. Spoke Cassandra. The longer your body fights using that summoning skill of yours, the more your mana control, mastery, and impact of skills rise. Am I right? Asked Khan. He remembered that because during the finale, Cassandra's mastery and control over Brunhild kept increasing the more they fought. In the last stages, if not for her mana being limited because of her rank, the Valkyrie would have easily decimated him in the battle if it kept on for longer. Cassandra nodded after his deduction and asked in response, Now tell me your secret. How did you get so strong after our battle? Your growth is simply too suspicious. And you don't even have an ancient rank class like me. She queried. What can I say? The more I fight stronger opponents, the more my body tends to gain strength after a full recovery. Spoke Khan. However, Cassandra rolled her eyes, totally not believing Khan. She then gave a coy smirk and spoke. All right then, keep your secrets. If that's all, I'll go along with your father's request in the letter. I have a special place to station you. I believe you'll be able to practice and hone your skills there given the type of monsters that inhibit that border. And I won't assign any commander to oversee you either. In return, I ask that you 3 protect that place, the soldiers and normal people. And remember that I will hold you responsible. If you mess up, you will be punished according to the law. So what do you say? Asked Khan. Cassandra nodded back in agreement. The letter Khan received days ago was from Damon Michelson, the 6th stage Saint Mage who was second only to the faction leader of the demi-human faction. The reason why Khan was being hospitable to Cassandra was because the Michelson clan declared their intentions to not follow the commands from the faction itself. And for what reasons he didn't know or care. Even if they had ulterior motives, he would be able to see through them in time. After the whole arrangements regarding Cassandra's posting ended and her group left, Khan finally returned to his royal bedroom. Suddenly, his face turned serious as soon as he was finally alone. I feel like a storm is approaching. I shouldn't delay any longer. I have everything I need and now nothing can stop in my way as long as I'm in Verlassen. So it's about time I begin practicing, he said in a cautious tone. The next second, he pulled out hundreds of big and archaic books that he had robbed from the ring of the elven semi-saint mage aka Solomon Elfenheim. And after a delay of an entire year, Khan was finally going to prioritize on his most OP divine ability. He spoke in a determined tone as his words filled the entire bedroom. Time to practice my dimensional law. After Khan had finally achieved what he wanted and now stood at the pinnacle where no one was going to come in his way, he finally had the chance to quietly focus on some of his best skills and techniques that he needed to master in the long run. And the number 1 priority of them all was the dimensional law divine ability. This was the divine ability he carefully chose after thinking a lot and seeing that there were simply too many applications that could be implemented once he mastered it. But unlike the ability absorption or synthesis divine ability, this one came with terms and conditions. This one had the prerequisite need of Khan having to study and master the space law. And as per his knowledge, space law was extremely rare to find and master in the world of Vantria. Even in the capital Rathna, Khan hadn't even found or heard of anyone or a saint having studied or mastered this law of reality. But luckily, he had managed to fight and kill Solomon Elfenheim, the semi-saint elven mage who tried to kill Khan in order to get the core of the first emperor of the Rakos Empire, aka Rathnar, the Conqueror. The elven semi-saint mage was someone who had left his clan and had been studying the space law for more than a century. He had ventured through many places to hone his craft and amassed extremely useful and authentic archaic records related to space magic and space law itself. If not for being limited by his rank and levels, Solomon could have been a dangerous powerhouse even among saints of the empire. But since he lacked resources and a saint's core after abandoning his clan in search of finding the emperor's core, which Khan found in the Brahmner dungeon after the death of the Magma Drake dungeon boss, he hadn't even crossed level 100, which led to Khan being able to kill Solomon in their battle after using several of his skills such as Azura mode, Berserk God mode, Doppelganger skill, and hence, Khan ended up being the one to inherit all his belongings after he robbed off the mage's space ring. And after eating the elf's core, which had already amassed and adapted to the space law, Khan finally met the conditions to unlock this divine ability. However, ever since he left Flavit City and came to the capital, he was simply too busy while creating a standing for himself to hold authority, wealth, and resources to the point that he didn't even have the opportunity to study or master the space law itself. But now that he had achieved all his goals, Khan could finally stop worrying and focus on this crucial divine ability that he knew for certain that it would make him a monster even amongst the other chosen heroes of the gods. This was finally the moment of reckoning. Khan took a deep breath and commanded the system. Show me all the details regarding the dimensional law. Abilities va skills under the dimensional law divine ability. Dimension void, SS rank, passive, upgradable. Allows the host to have access to all space and void in a 10-kilometer radius in any direction. The host can travel through this space by opening a void crack. Note, the range and activation time of the void skills will increase with the increase in the host's proficiency of space law. Current progress, 1%. Dimension shift, S rank, active, upgradable. Allows the host to temporarily shift a body part to the void without causing any harm to the host's body or affecting the host's abilities, skills va fighting prowess. Note, the time va amount of body parts the host can shift inside the void will increase with the host's mastery over space law. Current mastery, 5%. Dimensional cut, SS rank, active, upgradable. Allows the host to use dimensional law to merge with any physical weapon and attacks to cut through any object as far as the range of this skill is.
Current combat technique mastery, 1%.
Current range, 100 meters. Note, the increase in range of the skill will be dependent upon the host's proficiency in this combat technique. Dimensional domain, SS rank, active, upgradable. Allows the host to bring one enemy or an entity inside a 100 meters isolated dimension for 1 minute. In this dimensional domain, the targeted enemy or entity will have 50% of their physical stats and mana capacity reduced. Note, the number of enemies or entities the host can bring inside this domain via the activation time for the skill will increase with the host's proficiency in space law and mastery of the skill. Current mastery, 1%. The host is advised to spend time and master these abilities from the dimensional law divine ability. Reported the system. Sigh. Even with just 1% mastery, I have unlocked so many OP skills, truly worthy of being called a divine ability. Spoke Khan as he sighed after being overwhelmed with the details. System, how can I actually use these skills and abilities? Even after I ate Solomon's core and unlocked it, I never felt any changes to my body or had any understanding about how to use them. Queried Khan. The host must study space magic. It is an essential factor to comprehend the space law itself. And the more skills and spells related to the space magic host can master and perfect, the more master and control will be gained. The host must use that experience to comprehend space law and practice dimensional law skills and abilities. The system would like to inform the host that the space law is the hardest law of reality to master, and it's just a weaker version. The system would also like to inform the host that the dimensional law divine ability was created by God of Space himself. However, no one had chosen this divine ability prior to the host, and even the representatives of the God of Space discarded it because it's extremely hard to master. And in the history of Vantria itself, no one was able to use the space law to become a demigod either. Revealed the system. Stunned. Khan was simply too shocked to even speak after the system gave him the heads up. Khan's face twitched as he felt like punching himself in the face, and a regretful expression appeared on his face. Damn! What have I done?